This is a level 7. As of right now, we are at war.
All right, so moving on to Guardians of the Galaxy. Chris, you want to start us off?
Sure. Again, soundtrack sold this movie for me. I actually have the vinyl. I love listening to it just on repeat. I had no idea who the Guardians were. My dad was a huge Guardians fan. Genuinely, it felt like what the Marvel Cosmic Universe should be. And it really gave a glimpse into that and how the MCU was just going to form over the next 10 years from where we're at now. And I mean, I give it a 10 out of 10. I thought this movie was just absolutely well directed. James Gunn, when they said that they weren't going to have him for Volume 3, I died a little inside. I think I actually would have cried when I saw that because, I mean, he nailed it. James Gunn is a phenomenal director. James Gunn nailed this story, and it was just phenomenally well written. It really set up Nova. It set up the whole Nova Corps. I mean, I would love to just see a Disney Plus movie on the Nova Corps and see where they take that, because the humor around all of that and the casting in the Nova Corps that we saw.
Peter Jason Quill.
What a bunch of a-holes.
There. I need his prosthetic leg. His leg? Yeah.
Was phenomenal. So, in all honesty, 10 out of 10, I'd even give it an 11, just because it was that good.
Excellent. Tim, what do you got?
All right. So I'm gonna go right ahead and say it. This movie did not do it for me as much as it did in the past. After watching the movie again recently, Ronan just another bland, lackluster villain. Probably one that takes himself too seriously in a movie like this. I did the unfortunate thing of kind of comparing him to Malekith in that sense. But he did have potential. And as far as the themes of the movie, I didn't think the family themes were as strong as the second movie. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm a Spidey fan, but if you know me well, I adore Star-Lord. He's definitely a close second to my favorite superhero. And just knowing that, for me, he provided most of the comedy in this movie, and I love that. And because it's just his reactions to, a talking raccoon, a talking tree, and this, this little rock that can hold so much power. Other than that, just some of the scenes just didn't do it for me, and so I'm gonna go ahead and give it 7 out of 10 for it. Not bad by any stretch, but just definitely didn't hold up for me as well as I thought.
Wow, 2020 is about the end of our bromance. So moving on to Eric, what are your thoughts?
That was funny. I didn't know anything about the Guardians going into the movie. Being a wrestling fan, the only reason why I went was to see Dave Bautista, and the movie was just amazing. The visual effects, like Chris said, the soundtrack was amazing. I have to get that because I loved it. Like I said, love the action. Ronan, yeah, I loved Ronan, especially what's that? When he broke that guy's neck. He was talking to Thanos. That was amazing. So, but I give it a 9 out of 10. This was a really good movie. Chris Pratt was amazing. Love Zoe Saldana, so it was great.
I think the most interesting part, yes, the soundtrack was great, but the soundtrack, I don't think I've ever seen a movie where the soundtrack fit the moment so well of everything that was happening. And I love how they used music in it. I think on the second one, they used it as a crutch, but we'll get to that. But it was brilliant. I was a little disappointed when I first saw the characters because I'm a big Guardians fan. So when I saw the lineup, I was like, oh, it's not my Guardians. But I do like how over the course of the movies, they actually worked those Guardians in. My one critique, though, the Drax that they show in the movie, as great as he played it, as great as it was, that's not Drax the Destroyer. Like, that's not my comic book Drax. And so that part kind of got me. Like, yeah, the aggressiveness was there, but it just wasn't Drax that I know from the comics. With that said, I was able to accept it for what it was. From the opening scene of that movie, it's brilliant. I love that movie. When I heard James Gunn say that it was going to connect to Infinity War, so this is 2014 it came out, and he said it's going to connect to Infinity War, which we knew nothing about. It just got me so excited, even more excited. And so, though there's a lot I want to see from the cosmic stuff, which I think we will, this really set it up nicely. Rocket grows on me more and more every time I watch that movie, and I didn't think it was possible. Just the growth, just who that character embodies. I wouldn't expect coming out of that movie my favorite part being a talking raccoon. Especially Rocket. He's not even one I really enjoy in the comics, but man, brilliant. I absolutely love it. I give it 9 out of 10 as well. And that soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks of a movie ever.
What are you doing?
I'm distracting you, you big turd blossom.
But I appreciate your sentiment, Tim. I just don't know if we can be friends anymore. I think Guardians is the first example that we saw where you could tell the director was a comic book fan. With the thought and everything put into it, just you could tell that, wow, this director knows comics. This director loves comic books. All right, so we got to do Age of Ultron.
Drop it at his feet. I'm like, boom, you looking for this?
And I have a feeling we're going to have some very different opinions on this, and I think that's going to be cool.
Can't wait.
So, well, since Tim's so excited, I don't want him to... No?
Well, why don't you go first?
Me?
You haven't gone first yet.
I know, it's because I'm always so negative about everything. I like to have all the positivity flowing. It softens me up a bit. Age of Ultron, didn't love it, didn't like it, didn't hate it. It existed. When I saw it, I thought it was cool. They're bringing everybody together. I think I was more disappointed because when you had, the twins, I had so many hopes for them. And then that's where kind of Marvel's dealings kind of screwed stuff up in a lot of ways. Like, I really wish they'd waited to bring the twins in, especially Quicksilver. But it was all right. I think James Spader did what he could with Ultron. I didn't like the look of Ultron. It's a movie I think that they relied a bit too much on CGI more than they did story. I didn't think story was great in this one. I'm also not a big Hawkeye fan of these movies, and there's too much Hawkeye for me. There's something lacking there that Jeremy Renner brings to the table. I think that this was the first time, though, that they finally got Thor right. They did a great job with Thor in this film, and especially compared to what we had seen so far. So that gave me a little hope. It's very run-of-the-mill for me. When it came out, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I sat through it a second time and said, oh, wait, this isn't really that good. I give it 6 out of 10 Flurkins. On another day, I might do 4 or 5, but today I'm feeling it. I just watched it the other day, and it was kind of nice to see how all these characters looked before the events of the most recent movies and their early interactions, because another thing I've been noticing rewatching these, the chemistry between all these characters and these actors. And I think the reason why some of these more recent movies are so great is because they've grown together and they've built these careers together for so long now that it's just, it's great. So 5 out of 10 Flurkins. Nah, we'll stick with the 6. 6 out of 10 Flurkins here because they put in the effort. All right. Chris, you want to go next?
I'll go next. So I definitely think that this movie was downgraded simply because they came out and they announced phase 2 and phase 3 together.
It's good talk.
No, it wasn't.
And Marvel definitely said that that was one of the reasons why they feel that Age of Ultron did not get the hype that it deserved from the fans. And I would totally agree with that. I thought it was a great movie. I'm not going to say good. I'm not going to say fantastic either. I would definitely say it was a great movie simply because James Spader was phenomenal as Ultron. As soon as my wife found out he played Robert California in The Office, she couldn't see him the same ever again. Because she was like, who's that actor? And I was trying to figure out what he was from and tell her, and she goes, that is not him. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I love the scene, like you said, where they're kind of building that chemistry, the after party. The Stan Lee cameo in it was hilarious.
Mhm.
One of my
One of my favorites. Second to the library scene that's outside of the MCU in Amazing Spider-Man. But yeah, I thought that Age of Ultron, even though it was only one movie, and yeah, it said age, even though it was really only like a week or two, I truly thought that this movie was one that really had to bring the Avengers together, but start to pull them apart at the same time.
Mhm.
And I felt that it moved the storyline in the whole MCU very well. And just the fact that it did that, I'm going to give it an 8. And I love the different callbacks to it later on when they mentioned Tony's murder bots.
All right, what do we got, Tim?
All right. I'm going to start off by saying that right up until the title card, it is my favorite opening of any Marvel movie. The fluidity of that fight scene when they were fighting Hydra, right up until Scarlet Witch does that creepy ass smile and
Gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
lets Tony take the scepter. I got just talking about it. It's just very, very well done. It really sets the tone very well. The twins throughout the movie, they were okay. I thought they played off you didn't see that coming a little too much. But they were enjoyable enough. As much as I don't like Joss Whedon as a director, this movie was great. He's really good at bringing like iconic scenes like that after party. It just sticks with you. And I'm gonna be on your side with Ultron. I was not a fan of how he looked. I know he was supposed to be more evolved, but I really just wanted to see his like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 look. So more of how his minions looked with the solid light eyes kind of slanted, and there were just small little things that happened because of the of different directorial styles. The one thing I do have to say though, for me, this is where Bruce Banner peaked. He was phenomenal in this movie, the way he was written. A little bit of comedy, not too much. I didn't mind the whole glove scene kind of thing with Black Widow, even though it didn't go anywhere. It was still okay. He was great in every scene that he was in. And although it's just like the evil beams of light in the sky being such a trope in superhero movies nowadays, this one definitely perpetuated the whole like bad guy with an army of lookalikes to him, like Loki had with the Chitauri, even though they're not lookalikes. But I love throwing this movie on again at work. It's just a really, really great movie in the long run to me. So I'm gonna go with Chris and give it 8 out of 10 Forkins.
Wow, there we go. Now, Eric, what are your thoughts, my man?
Man, after sitting here listening to you guys hit every point. So what else is left to say? I did enjoy this movie, not more than the first Avengers, but I definitely enjoyed it. I like the vision that all of the Avengers had, Tony seeing everybody dead and Scarlet Witch seeing her past, Cap seeing his, so that was good. And actually, you said you hate Hawkeye in this movie. I loved Hawkeye in this movie. He was like the only one that was grounded. He's getting hurt and whatnot. And I love what he said to Scarlet Witch. He said, "We're fighting an army of robots. The sky is falling, and I have a bow and arrow." That was just great. So
Yeah,
Sense right now.
There's something just so emo about his portrayal, about Jeremy Renner's portrayal of the character, and it's not it for me.
I loved it. I loved it.
I don't
I
know.
love the foreshadowing of Civil War and Endgame. I love that. Ultron could have been a bit more menacing for me. He was all funny and jokey. I wanted him to really, really hurt somebody. So I give it a 7 out of 10.
I will be honest though, that Robert California connection is like, every time I watch that movie, I'm like, yeah, and then I can't get it out of my head. His lines from The Office, I kind of picture like Ultron saying Robert California's lines, and I'd watch that movie. So now we kind of end the phase with Ant-Man. Let's start with Eric on Ant-Man.
Ant-Man was funny. I love Paul Rudd. It was funny. I loved his crew, especially T.I. T.I. was funny. And who was the other guy's name that told that funny story or whatever?
Lewis?
Characters.
Yeah, Lewis.
Michael
Pena plays him. Yeah, that was great. That was funny. I don't like how the MCU kills their villains because I really liked Yellow Jacket, and I feel like he should have been in the sequels. But I give it a 8 out of 10. It was good. It was funny. Loved the action.
So
What do you got for us, Chris?
I think it's very interesting, the Yellow Jacket storyline. I thought Ant-Man was phenomenal for the type of story that it was. That whole stealing, this guy was consistently getting put in jail for theft and just anything he could steal, I feel like he did. And then he says, I'm going to turn my life around. And of course, then Hank Pym says, well, you need to go steal some stuff for me. And I thought it was the humor in it truly made the movie and made the MCU into something that it's not always serious. I think Ant-Man's team was just perfect. That whole story of him telling it really quickly and doing it in a sense where it just made it seem like it was bigger than life in his mind. You could really see these characters kind of come together and that they had been together for years. There was so much chemistry on screen between those four actors that it started something. And I feel like the Ant-Man franchise in of itself going forward, and Ant-Man 2, which we'll get to next time, was just absolutely a phenomenal story. It was kind of slow at first, which, I mean, it is an origin story. It is a character that we haven't seen a lot of. So I will say that it's kind of problematic in that sense. So I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was definitely a really good movie.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I call an unfortunate casualty.
That's a good assessment. Tim, what do you got?
I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with Chris. I loved the fact that they kept this, no pun intended, small scale. I like how it was so...
Pun fully intended.
Yeah, who am I kidding? I liked how self-contained it was. And I love this villain. Usually I'm highly against villains that are only in one movie, which is my problem with some of the old Spider-Mans, is that like Sam Raimi just going off all of his villains. But this needed to be done. He was just so insane by the end of it, and it was just really well done. I didn't like the way Hope was written, and that kind of extends into Ant-Man and the Wasp too. Just another character that takes itself too seriously. Although I know Scott was supposed to be the goofy one, and there needs to be some balance there. But yeah, it was a very, very enjoyable movie. It made me really come to love Ant-Man quite a bit, especially that callback with Falcon when he raided the Avengers facility. It was just a perfect balance between Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket, their motivations, and just the way of thinking. They definitely had me in the first half when Scott knocked him into the bug zapper. I thought that was going to be it. It was just overall a really well done movie. So I'm going to go ahead and give it 8 out of 10 Porkins. Nice.
I'm a big fan of Ant-Man in the comics, different iterations they've done. I think they took the fun components of it and brought it into this movie. What I really appreciated the most is the first time I watched it, I'm like, wow, this really feels like a Paul Rudd movie. Like, it just very Paul Ruddish, which it is. Then I found out he wrote part of the screenplay, him and Adam McKay. And so I was like, that's why it's so fun. So I was like, that's why, because a lot of it just seemed like Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd. I've been a fan of his since Clueless, like when I was a kid. So I was like, something felt right about it, I guess, with him doing that role, and it made sense that he wrote it for himself, kind I love the emotional roller coaster of this movie. When it came out, I was still figuring out the dad thing myself. So kind of like the relationship between him and his daughter, that kind of stuff. I was Cassie, is that her name?
Yeah.
That whole relationship right there just really stuck with me. I think that the humor was needed after everything we just witnessed in the MCU. We needed a break. I think the cast, the chemistry was amazing. They wrote the villain just enough to make me want more of him, but not enough to, he got what he deserved. And so it's, and that's not always the case in a lot of these movies. And I really did appreciate that. That scene where they're fighting in the house and, Thomas the Train gets huge, the ants are huge. It was more than just comedic chops, the visual aspects added to the whole too. I think that's very well done. This was one of those movies that I liked, not just as a Marvel movie, but as a whole, as a movie that if friends are over, I'm hey, let's throw this on, because you don't need to know anything watching it, just have a good time. Hope is much more of a badass than they gave her credit for in the movie. In the comics, she's awesome, but also the Wasp is more of a badass.
Gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
But also has that humor, and I don't think that they blended those as much as I would like to see.
I agree.
But I think that it was very well done. Hank Pym, I like that he was in the movie. I think that was a very nice touch to not just move on and pretend he didn't exist. So that was great. I really appreciate all the dynamics. It's one of my favorite films in the MCU. I give it a 9 out of 10 Flurkins.
Nice.
I think that it was the movie we didn't know we needed, the movie we probably didn't deserve, but the movie that kind of got us over the hump of what we had just seen in the previous 10 films or whatever we were at. At that point. We needed the light break for it, so I give it 9 out of 10.
Nice.
I like you using Batman quotes. Looks good on you.
I'm gonna burn this video. I'm gonna physically print it onto a CD and then burn the CD.
Not every day that you see a throwaway villain like Yellow Jacket get some pretty awesome sounding one-liners.
Yeah.
He was standing in Cassie's room, and she's she's pulling the covers up, and she goes, "Are you a monster?" And he goes, "Do I look like a monster?" And just, so good.
Yes.
You have to have that humor side with all this
Shit! Language!
going down.
Yeah.
Because life isn't worth living without this over here when you're about to face extinction. You're about to face the Chitauri army. You're about to face the Convergence and these dark elves coming out of nowhere. The MCU is just nailing it right now.
Yeah.
Well, you look at what you're talking about, Hank Pym and Tony, and it's with great power comes great responsibility, right? And that's really finally front and center there. Beautiful discussion today, gentlemen. Love it. This is probably the highlight of my week and a great way to end the weekend and kick off the week. So I look forward to phase 3, where we can really get into pretty much the movies that blew the whole thing apart. That's just, but awesome stuff, guys. I look forward to our next discussion. And as always, let's keep it casual.